We start off, I have oyster shells that I keep on hand from fresh oysters that I've shucked and eaten, and I run them through the dishwasher after I've scrubbed them, give them a quick scrub, run them through the dishwasher, and they're good to go for baked oysters. And of course, you got a very nice, legitimate presentation with real oyster shells. Start off with your oyster shells. Take your oyster, you select oyster, they're nice and plump and juicy. You could use shucked oysters. Generally though, they're probably going to be a little small and they're going to become overpowered by the other ingredients. So your nice plump select oyster, place it on your tray. Saute off a little spinach just very quickly, blanch it, saute it, however you want to do it. If you're on a, if you're watching calories, then just use a little drop of water, saute it off. I season my spinach with a little garlic, salt and pepper. Basically, I season everything with garlic, salt and pepper. And the key is don't overdo the garlic. The temptation is to do it until you can really taste it. Garlic is one of these spices that brings out natural flavour if you don't overuse it. If you overuse it, it's going to taste like escargot. Whatever you eat is going to taste like an escargot. It's going to be garlic. If you want that, then fine, pour the garlic on. But use it as a seasoning, much like you would salt and pepper, and you'll find it'll add flavour, natural flavour of the ingredient you're seasoning. Saute your spinach, drop it on top, then your crab meat, and then straight under the broiler. About 8 to 10 minutes. If it's a small oyster, you don't want to overdo it. You could maybe go 5 to 6. So, but about 6 to 8 minutes is a really big oyster. You might want to leave it in there for 10 minutes. I wouldn't put it right under the broiler. Put it in towards the top because you don't want to burn the top of it. Little hollandaise sauce. Now you can use freshly made. If you're using if you're doing the crab meat. Do the freshly made hollandaise sauce from scratch. Much better. It goes with the oysters and it goes with the level of appetizer you're doing. If you're spending the money on crab meat, you want to do the real hollandaise. If it's your Tuesday night version, then just use the packet. If it's just figure out how to do the packet version the best way. You could add half and half to it. If it says mix it with water, try it with half and half. It'll probably bring it up a little bit. Make it a little creamier. Make it a little bit closer to the real thing. Top your oysters off. Just a tablespoon, probably enough, maybe 2. You don't want it dripping all over the place. Pop that under the broiler and brown it lightly. You want a very light tan on the hollandaise, and then they're ready to go. And this is an appetizer that will really wow people if you're having people over for dinner. It's simple. It's medium. I would call it medium difficulty as far as time, as far as cost. It's about medium. The crab meat's the most expensive part of it. But it'll give a wow factor to start the evening off with an appetizer like this. And even people that don't like oysters will try it and say, wow, this is really good. Because of the crab meat, they'll even if they leave the oyster behind because they don't like oysters, they'll love the crab meat and hollandaise and spinach. The Tuesday night version, much easier. It's simply an oyster, again a select, put it on the shell. Now, pop it under the broiler with some garlic butter. And this time you do want the garlic to show through. You want proper garlic butter, so melt some butter, add garlic to taste this time. Not to season, but garlic to taste, which is different to seasoning. Pour your garlic butter on, broil the oyster, 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes should do it. And then you want to just sprinkle it with some Parmesan cheese. Little Parmesan right out the plastic jar, the cheap stuff that we all keep handy in the cupboard for when we're doing an omelette or when we're doing spaghetti and we're not great in real Parmesan. Parmesan, very expensive. The store-bought stuff in a jar, not as good, nowhere near as good, but nowhere near as expensive. So it's a Tuesday night appetizer. Sprinkle Parmesan cheese to finish, and then you've got a nice oyster appetizer, baked oyster, not as involved as our oyster Rockefeller with crab, but still a nice, tasty midweek appetizer. I'm sorry?
7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay. And then for entree now, to go with this, I generally prefer do a seafood appetizer and a seafood entree. You don't have to do that. You could you could serve a Chinese pot sticker with pork and then do a seafood dish. There's no rules. It's what you want to do. It's what's going to work for you. It's what tastes good to you. Don't get stuck in the rut of doing what's expected. The good cooks of the world, or the chefs, they create. They don't just follow recipes. And in creating a dish, or in creating a menu, or a dinner party, you've got to think outside the box a little bit and be prepared to take a chance. Don't be scared. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong, but usually they go right if you're careful. And even if they do go wrong, if you're careful, it won't go so far wrong you can't serve it and say, well, I tried something new. Again, the seafood dish for this is one of my favourites. I learnt to cook it at a very young age, out of necessity, because my mother couldn't cook, and I realised that I better learn real quick. So I don't mean to be mean to my mum, but she was just terrible in the kitchen. Couldn't boil water. She was that bad. So this is a cod du glaire. It's officially it's kind of a French classic in a way. But it's very simple. It's not too involved. It's not beyond the realms of anyone who's just beginning to cook. I did it when I was 10. It was the first thing I ever cooked in my life. I got it right out of a cookbook. And of course, since then, I've done it numerous ways. And tonight, I'm going to give you two different versions of it. The classics cookbook version is classic French serving of mashed potatoes piped around the plate and toasted under the broiler to give it a little finish, light tan. You don't want them too dark, or it just won't be appetizing. But a light brown, medium brown finish under the broiler for the potatoes. Take your cod. I use cod. You can use any fish, any white fish. If it comes to it, you can use any fish. Use a piece of salmon if you want it. If that's what you got, use it. Not a problem. Again, don't be frightened to experiment with these things. So you take your cod, broil it, 8 to 10 minutes usually does the trick. Unless it's a very thick piece, you might want to go longer, but you don't want to overdo it, and the fish will keep cooking with the sauce on it, and by the time you serve it, it'll be fine. Nothing worse than overcooked seafood. It's mushy, it's tasteless, and you kind of ruin the point of spending all that money on seafood. Broil your fish, 8 minutes, probably plenty. Put it right down in the middle of your mashed potatoes. Now, you've already browned your potatoes off. The plate's nice and hot. I always like to serve on a hot plate. Restaurant food always goes out on a hot plate. Nobody puts it out on a cold plate. Cold plate, it's like, imagine if you do 2 eggs in the morning, you stick them on a cold plate. By the time you've walked to the table, they've gone cold, and they're not very appetizing. Anything you serve, hot plate. Always have a hot plate. I stick my plate in the microwave for 1 minute, gets it hot, I'm ready to go. Never have cold food when I sit down to eat it. It's simple. You don't have to put it in the oven. I mean, obviously, if you've got guests, you've got 8 people over, stack your plates in the oven, about 130 degrees, leave them in there for 10-15 minutes. They'll be nice and warm, hot. Your food should go out on a hot plate. It's one of those things that any chef or cook worth his salt will always make sure they do. Of course, it's a French dish. It's a classic French seafood dish. There's a sauce involved. Now, This is an easy sauce. It's basically a white wine with onions, tomatoes, bell peppers. You can put some other stuff in if you want. Put some capers, some olives. I like putting olives in mine. Green olives, black, whatever I got. Doesn't, well, both, doesn't really matter. It gives it a nice Mediterranean feel. It's basically a tomato sauce. So if you got a little tomato juice, you can use that. You can use a little puree if you got it, whatever you got handy. A tomato-based sauce with white wine. As I say, onions, peppers, tomatoes chopped up. I like the olives, capers if I've got them. I even put anchovies in mine. Anchovies is one of those strange ingredients that just flavour everything very nicely. It's used extensively in European cooking, not so much over here in America. But if you learn to use them sparsely and carefully, you'll find it'll add a level of flavour to whatever you're cooking that you'll will become it'll become a staple in your kitchen. You'll always have a can in the larder. So as I say, simple sauce. It's a French wine. Thicken it up with a little roux, butter and flour, equal amounts butter, equal amount flour. Just a blonde roux. You don't need a dark roux. Dark roux is the Cajun style. Where you stir it and it browns and browns and browns and browns. Just cook the flavour of the flour out. A blonde roux is a sort of darkish yellow. All you need, be careful with the roux. Don't put too much in. Put enough in to thicken your sauce, but don't over thicken it, because now if you over thicken it, you're going to find yourself in a kind of thinning and thickening battle. And you don't really want to do that, because you'll add too much wine. Suddenly your sauce will taste like a glass of wine. The wine is to add to the depth of the flavour of the sauce. It's not to overpower the sauce. So just be careful. You can always add more roux, but you can't take it out. And if you add too much, you're going to end up trying to thin the sauce back out, which can mess the sauce up very easily. Little roux, stir it in a pan, pour it over your fish. It's a nice, simple, fairly simple dish. Again, I'd put it at medium level as far as cost, labour, but it's a nice, good, solid, classic French meal. If you're having people over, it's worth going to the little bit of trouble and expense to make a nice sauce. The sauce is what finishes the whole meal off, makes the meal what it is. A piece of fish is just a piece of fish. Seafood is one of those ingredients, any kind of fish. Shrimp without a sauce are kind of bland. Boiled shrimp, I love them, but you've got cocktail sauce. Whatever, anytime you're eating seafood, it's really about the sauce or the added ingredient that flavours. Whether it's just drawn butter and lemon, that's great. But there's always going to be something to flavour scallops, shrimp or fish. Salmon has its own flavour, so you don't really need to mess about too much with that. It's a strong fish. Some mackerel, some things like that, quite strong fish. The sauce is superfluous, but there's not many of them. Most fish and shellfish need something added, even if it's just butter and lemon. They need something to bring out the flavour of the fish. The simple way to do this one is very simple, and you'll laugh at me. It's the same thing, potatoes, mashed potatoes. I like to pipe them if I've got people coming. If I haven't, I just put a scoop of mashed potato on the plate, and I don't surround it. I just put a blob of mashed potato right in the middle. I stick my fish right on top of it, which of course is popular now. Everybody's building their food up. And then the sauce. Now the sauce for this one, because I'm just cooking for me and the wife, there's only two of us, I'm not going to go to too much trouble on a Tuesday night. So what I do, I take some salsa, store-bought salsa. Now we've all got a favourite salsa that we like. Just get your favourite salsa. I put some in a cup. I add a little dash of wine, a big knob of butter, put it in the microwave, cover it, get it hot. Right there I've got a sauce. Taste it first before you put it on the fish. You might want to adjust it either give it a little bit, thin it out a little with some tomato juice, thin it out so that it's not so spicy. You might want it more spicy. You might want to add a dash of Tabasco, but taste it before you put it on the fish, adjust it, pour it on your fish, and voila, you got yourself a nice dish, nice seafood Tuesday night, no trouble, no expense meal. I like to finish my plates off generally with a a scattering of chopped parsley. I don't care if it lands on the rim of the plate. You don't have to wipe it off. Just dash it across. Gives a nice presentation, especially if you've got people coming. Garnish is more important than Tuesday night. Saturday night is a bigger night than Tuesday. You do a little garnishment. Whatever you like to do. People have different ideas of garnishes, and we'll get into garnishes another time. But just a sprinkling of chopped parsley makes all the difference to the presentation of any meal. So there you have it. You've got two different ways to do a baked oyster and a classic fish dish. With that, of course, on a Saturday night especially, I think you should probably have a bottle of wine with it. And we're going to have a bottle of Chateauneuf du Pape. I like drinking red wine with seafood. Just drink the wine you like. Don't follow the rules. White wine with fish, red wine with meat. That's old-fashioned thinking. Use the wine that you like, drink the wine you like, and have a glass while you're cooking, because that's when I really enjoy my wine. Even more so than when I'm sitting down eating. But anyway, that's our meal for this week. Let us know how you like it, and happy cooking. Okay, now I slowed it down a lot there. I tried to.